Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another, podcast of Rock City Central. I have somebody, not only she's super special, and I tell you everybody's special, but she came in, I'm not going to say flew in, but she came in from Philadelphia and was not even late. She was perfectly on time. You don't even get that from the coaches that work at Rock Out Loud. Forget about anybody else. So you'll never ever have an excuse, especially after you meet Andrianna Acosta, Miss Beautiful New Jersey International, Miss Camden, I should say.
Yes,
and
Camden
running
County.
That's right, and running for the April 10th contest of Miss Beautiful, Miss New Jersey International. Is that what they call it?
Yes, Miss New Jersey International.
Got it. And you're also a former winner, right?
Yes, I did Miss World America New Jersey, and
You won that competition,
Yes,
didn't you?
I
So
did.
what was it like to win? Because all these people that are watching, they don't know what it's like to win, right?
it's almost surreal. You know, you don't realize it until like you say it to yourself, like, oh my gosh, you have the crown. It's like, oh my God, this is mine. I won. Like, I'm actually a winner. And you know, I never win things like contests and stuff. I never win. And so when I won, it was so much fun. You know, not only was I proud of myself, I was so proud of myself. I felt like, wow, I actually did this. But my parents are proud of me. My grandparents are proud of me. So it was nice to not only win for me, but to win for others.
So when you say you won, is it because you were the prettiest? Or you wore the best bathing suit?
No.
What was it?
In fact, you know, contrary to what some people believe.
Well, it's a beauty contest, right?
Honestly, I don't like to call it beauty contest anymore because
Okay.
it's not even really about beauty anymore. When I'll admit, when I first was introduced to pageants, I did think it was a beauty contest. I thought it was just about beauty. But after getting involved in it and meeting so many amazing women,
Yeah.
there is so much that goes into a pageant, just so much that you learn so much about yourself, so much that you are doing. I've met so many amazing, talented women. Some past pageants that I've been involved in, some of my friends that I met some of my very close friends that I'm still friends with now. I met a girl who is in school to be a pediatrician. I met a girl who works on Wall Street. I met another girl who has her own nonprofit. Like, I've met so many talented, amazingly smart women. It's insane that pageantry isn't more blown up, I want to say. Like, it's not as big as it should be because these women are amazing.
Platform based? How did you win? How did the judges say, you know what, I think Andrianna is going to win this one? What did they base that on?
It's a lot of things. Some of it goes into, your platform. So my platform was and still is human trafficking.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about that.
I can't wait.
A lot to talk. I'm really excited about that because all right, we're going to get to that. So I'm sorry. So you have all these judges there and they say, okay, Andrianna, you're the best this. So what is it that
So there's platform, human trafficking. It also is poise. So how you conduct yourself, how you speak, how you're able to answer questions.
Right.
That's all very important. And also how you walk. That also goes with poise and elegance. You know, are you carrying yourself, beautifully, gracefully? Are you just kind of, running down the runway with not a regard in the world? So there's a bunch of different things. I don't really think it's all about beauty. There's just so much that goes into it. It's really about your personality and what you can bring to this platform, what you can do for this title.
Right.
So for New Jersey, it's what can I do for New Jersey? And the judges felt with my platform being human trafficking, with my ability to conduct myself, I have the best chance at representing New Jersey on a national stage.
And then it was like Miss World New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
It gets even bigger.
I was Miss World New Jersey, and I competed with girls all over the country. Unfortunately, it was virtual, so we didn't get that one-on-one.
Yes.
But still, in fact, in a few weeks, I'm meeting up with former Miss New York and Miss Pennsylvania. Wow. And we're doing kind of a girls' Galentine's Day.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, you meet a lot of women that are still your friends, and you walk away knowing so much about yourself, learning, answering questions that you never really would have answered otherwise.
Right.
So.
And how has that helped your platform? Do you get more donations? Is it more awareness? What is it that you get when you pick a platform and you win?
You do a lot of work. I've done a lot of work on my own, but getting that awareness has definitely helped. I've been able to partner with a bunch of different organizations in getting awareness out there. I'm on social media. I'm doing all these different things to get that word out there. So yeah, winning definitely does bring attention to your platform. But even if you don't win, that attention is still going to your platform. You're still able to do so many things with your platform.
Because that's the introduction. That's
Exactly.
what Mary had said. These beautiful women, they have a platform, and that's their ticket into the door, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you start with a platform, and the point is, at least I believe, you want to walk away better than how you started.
Right.
And so I firmly believe when I started, I had a platform that I was passionate about. I was passionate about human trafficking. And when I walked away, I was still passionate about human trafficking, but I made more connections through it, and I was able to amp up my platform.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So before we get into your platform, because I'm going to really dig deep, because this is a big one for me. Let's talk about you. You're a Philly girl. So you started in Philly this morning. You went to Philly this morning.
Oh, yeah.
So you're a designer, right? Something like that?
Yeah, so I live in South Jersey, but I work in Center City, Philadelphia. I'm a digital media coordinator. So essentially, I have a bachelor's degree in graphic design and web design. So every day I manage different social media accounts for a PR company.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm really tested my abilities, and I can really be creative with my job.
Wow, so you start in Philly, then you come here. But from what I read, your dream job is not in Philly. It's somewhere in Disney. And I'm a huge
correct.
Disney fan.
That is correct.
You want to be a
Yes.
Disney, like a creator in Disney, right?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you're fluent in Disney.
I know everything.
it.
I know
So-
everything Disney. Everything Disney.
You know they're Imagineers.
Oh, yeah, there are.
That would definitely be a total dream to, work. And Disney has a bunch of different branches. There's
Yep.
Disney World, but there's Disney branches all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would love to score a job, working for Disney as one of their content creators or behind the scenes as their Imagineers, that would be so much fun, because it's making such a difference to not even children, to adults.
I
Like,
know.
I feel like I'm changed by Disney.
Me
So-
too. How often do you go to Disney?
Man, I haven't been to Disney in so long.
Uncle Walter's looking at you
I
going,
know,
why,
I see him.
Andrianna?
But I have Disney Plus, and I think I watch a Disney show or movie at least once a week.
Gotcha.
So I'm a full-on Disney girl. Growing up, I had all the VHSs.
Right.
Yeah, VHSs.
Wow.
So-
You don't look older than 15, so that doesn't even
Oh
count.
yeah, I had all the Disney VHSs, all the tapes, and in fact, I remember in our van we had a Disney cassette with all like the Disney sing-alongs.
Yes.
And that's when cassettes were in. And now cars don't even have cassette players.
They
but-
don't. Everything is looking at the iPhone,
Oh
right?
my gosh, yeah. So I'm definitely a true Disney girl. True and
So,
true.
I mean, there's just so much about you. So you're running off of that, and then you're doing this other platform. And I really want to dig deep into that platform. And the one thing I do want to dig deep in is I was at a Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within. And during this, I think it was day 2 or day 3, he brings up this gentleman who I believe his son was stolen from him, from their village, and becomes a sex slave or whatever it is. He's now human trafficked, right? And Tony Robbins says, I'm going to go in and I want to help you with your next mission, because they thought they were going to find this child, right? Of man. And now this is at Unleash the Power Within, maybe 30,000 people, and this is a great story. And he's saying, so in order for me to just go into it with you and give you, support you financially, I want to go in and I want to do a rescue. So Tony Robbins actually does that. And they rescued like 9 children, but
Wow.
not one of them was the child of this gentleman.
Wow.
And Tony, at the end of that rescue, he was very overwhelmed, and he said something to the effect of this: I'm so sorry we didn't find your little boy. And he was missing like 3 years now, 4 years.
I can't even imagine.
And he said to Tony in front of these 30,000 people, he said, yeah, but look at all of the people we saved, and that's why I do it.
Yeah.
So I need to understand why it's so important. I mean, do you know somebody that was involved with that? There's some stories that just came out that I want to share with you. I don't even know if you're aware of, and I have a lot of questions to ask you. But what's your connection with human trafficking? I know that 146, Love 146, was really something. Number 146 was the girl's name. of the website that they started. Then you had Break the Chain.
Yes.
You have all that you've started as
Yes.
well. What's the connection there? Is there a connection?
There is a connection. So thankfully and luckily, I don't know anyone personally that's been trafficked, and that's a blessing, first of all. But I'm Hispanic, I'm Latina, and so I didn't realize that the population of Hispanic minorities that are trafficked is the number one. It's the number one number, essentially. So we have Hispanic minorities, Black minorities, Asian minorities. Those minorities as a group are more at risk to get trafficked than...
Can you explain trafficking? Because I think there's a couple of things that I don't understand that maybe you can educate me with.
Yes. Okay, so we'll start at the beginning.
Thank you.
Trafficking 101. So there's a difference. People think trafficking and being kidnapped and smuggling is all the same thing.
Right.
But it's not. So when you think of smuggling, some people think of drug smuggling or smuggling people into different countries. Smuggling and trafficking are very different. Goodness, excuse me. Trafficking is being taken essentially without your permission, kidnapped essentially, but being sold for money or for goods or it's a transaction. Smuggling, for instance, when you smuggle drugs or you smuggle someone into the country, there's no transaction, there's no money being exchanged. You're not being sold.
Right. Okay.
So if you were to smuggle someone into the country, that's not labeled as trafficking because I'm not buying.
Understood. You're doing it for the benefit of that child.
Exactly. Yes, it's not. Though the word is condescending and it's not a great word, it's not the same as being trafficked.
Okay.
Trafficking, when you can have drug trafficking, for instance, human trafficking, labor trafficking. It's an exchange. So a lot of people, on piggybacking off of that, a lot of people think all trafficking is the same, but there's different types of trafficking. There's sex trafficking, child trafficking, there's trafficking in labor, which essentially it's, again, all a transaction. So when someone is child trafficked, they are taken, obviously against their will, and they're being sold for, I think now there was a recent study that said the average child that is sold is, I think, for $45. And
when you say sold, is that for forever or like for a sex act or something like that?
Sold to a buyer for whatever they're going to do. But that transaction, if I'm selling you something, there was a recent study, the average was about $45 to $60.
In what country is that?
In American dollars.
American dollars.
Yeah.
So this is happening in America?
Oh, it's happening in America. It's happening in New Jersey. It's happening in New York. It's happening.
Slow down. So when you say it's happening, how do you know it's happening? Because to me, it's so unfathomable that you would ever do this.
Yes. So to backtrack a little, I'm going to rewind.
Please.
You asked my connections. So as I mentioned, being a Hispanic, I grew up in a very minority-based neighborhood where there was drug use. There was, it wasn't a grade A neighborhood. So I came in contact with the organization Love 146, which they're a human trafficking organization. They told me, I learned from them that minorities like me are the most at risk. On top of that, being in a minority, those who come from vulnerable homes. So broken homes, homes that are, heavily, have a heavy drug background, those youth that come from divorced homes or youth that have drug issues, alcohol issues, anything like that, those are high-risk vulnerabilities. So you have those vulnerabilities that are most common in minority neighborhoods, unfortunately, and you have minorities just being minorities. Those two are the highest at risk to be human trafficked. So when I learned that, I thought about my neighborhood, and I personally know a bunch of people that I went to high school with that check all those boxes, unfortunately. And when I think about that, I'm like, there's no way that this happens. When I think of human trafficking, I think of it as an event that happens,
in a third world country.
Exactly.
That's
in a third world country, in Europe, in Asia, never in America. In fact, never in my own state, in my own city. And so I decided to dig up on that. I did some research and I'm like, there's no way. This is all fiction. And what I found was it is 200% true. And that scared me to the point of wanting to do something. I asked my parents, I was like, Mom, did you know that like this actually happens? And she didn't know. My dad didn't know.
I just want to understand. I guess I'm still not understanding. The word trafficking can mean, you said a lot of things. So the research that I've been doing is a lot of the trafficking is sexual exchanges for sexual activity. So a mom would traffic her daughter, make some money, come back home. Or you would sell a baby or a child overseas in a different country, and then there are even people that I've read that Americans who fly to different third world countries just to purchase children.
Yep.
It's crazy. So
Yes.
That's what I think of as trafficking. Is that the same
That
thing?
is, yes, it is the same. So that is what a lot of people think of trafficking. But here's a fun fact for everyone. Trafficking is more than just sex trafficking. That's the most common one we know.
Right.
But there's also a type of trafficking that there's no sex act involved. It's just like labor. So for example, if let's say someone comes from a foreign country,
Yep.
and the person who buys them or is hosting them, for instance, letting them stay in their home for, not for free, for free money, I should say. They're not paying the host anything, but they have to work, they have to, clean the house, do all this stuff. And if they don't, this so-and-so can't leave. So that's a type of trafficking.
Okay.
So while there's no sex act involved, you're still doing labor. You're not allowed to leave because the host is hosting you. You come from a different country.
Does the parent send that child off?
Sometimes that can happen. It can happen in children. It can happen in young adults. It can happen in grown adults. It happens a lot. It's mostly seen in, unfortunately, people who come from foreign countries who don't really speak the language. So they would come to America, or, they would come from Asia or somewhere. And let's say, I'm going to ping you as the bad guy here, but right. They're going to stay with you. And you say, yeah, you can stay at my house. I'll provide food, but you can't leave. You can do anything you want, but you have to cook, you have to clean, and you can't get your passport back until you do all this stuff.
So where do they find? Is there a market where you go shopping for people like this?
Yes.
I can't believe you're telling me this.
I know. It's a whole, I'm telling you, once you get...
It's a rabbit hole, right?
I was just going to say, you're going to go home and you're going to go into a rabbit hole. You're going to stay up all night and you're just going to do research on research, because I'm telling you, one thing leads to another. And it's like you jump down this rabbit hole and it's like, wait, what? And you go down another.
Right.
And so there's really so much that we can talk about, and there's not enough information out there about it. Like, no one's talking about this stuff. It's not on the media. And
but if it's so big and worldwide, why isn't that happening?
Because, I guess in a short answer, because it's not entertaining. And as sad as that is, because it is sad that we as a society need to be entertained in order to think it's important. There's a bunch of stories on the media that's an entertaining story or something that, sparks happy or angry emotion. But if it's not that, then...
Well, that makes me angry that this happens.
Makes me angry. But I guess what I'm saying is not angry enough is what the media is looking for.
Until somebody with a high profile's kid gets kidnapped.
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's sad. That's really sad.
Yeah, it's heavy, and I'm telling you, you're going to go down a rabbit hole later on. You're just going to search and see what you can do, because that's how I got started. I learned about why no one knows in my community. No one, my friends didn't know, my parents didn't know, and I used to live in this community.
Yeah.
I came from Long Island. I was born and raised on Long Island, and no one knew.
Wow.
And so I was like, I can't believe this. Why doesn't anyone know?
Yeah.
So that's why I decided to make that a priority. And I originally started a campaign called Born to be Loved.
Yep. With
while ago.
Born number 2,
yes,
right?
Born to. Born to be Loved. And essentially that was to prove to survivors of human trafficking that they're born for more than that life.
Right.
That you don't need, just because you are trafficked and just because you came from a crappy situation or a broken home or alcohol abuse, you're born for more. You're born to be loved, and you don't need to turn to drugs or alcohol or even a person.
Right.
Because you're vulnerable. You don't need to turn to a person to be something. You're born to be loved. And after that, I kind of piggybacked off of that, and I started getting involved with bigger organizations. Like right now, I'm involved with Underground Railroad.
The Project Underground Railroad.
Yes.
Yes, I know exactly. Did you see Mr. Tim Ballard? Is that Andrew Ballard?
His
first name I forgot, but his last name is
Ballard.
Ballard. That's it.
He has a documentary.
I saw it. I know. That's why I saw
yeah.
that like a year ago, and I'm like,
I had to watch it in 2 separate days because it was very heavy.
yes.
And
Let me ask you a question though.
Yes.
This is, and I know this is being recorded, but if I saw kids at harm's way, and I saw the adult that was in that, who was the woman taking these kids and doing the, I would kill them.
I know.
I don't know how they can hold themselves back by watching them do this to a child and say, we'll let the courts decide. And they're all politics. All those politicians let them go.
Yeah.
They were all out.
I know. And, see, this...
I'm getting so crazy now.
No, but this energy and this feeling is what people need. It's unfortunate, but people need that energy to be inspired, to do something.
100%.
And I feel so strongly for it because it's almost like when you're swimming and you are underwater, you're jumping up and down, up underwater, above water, and you feel that like out of breath feeling.
Yeah.
And it's like I need more air, but there's not enough air.
It's like an anxiety.
Exactly. It's that feeling of just like
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to do something, but no one's listening.
I know.
So I got involved with Operation Underground Railroad, and they're great. And
you know what? I reached out to them. I don't know if I followed up. That was my problem. I should have followed up because there was some kind of charity things that I just missed because they were raising these big events. But
yeah.
How do you work with them? Because I'd love to be part of that organization.
They're
as well.
amazing. So I work with them. In fact, if COVID wasn't a thing, I find myself saying that for everything.
Yeah.
If COVID wasn't a thing. But if COVID wasn't a thing, then they were supposed to be having, their annual gala, and I was invited to speak about my organization and to their crowd.
But it's not Born to Be Loved now. It's Break the Chain.
It's Break the Chain. That is correct. And Break the Chain, I piggybacked off of Born to Be Loved.
Right.
So quick background. Break the Chain, I started as a kind of, I guess, vague, open to everything type of human trafficking organization. And I got the name from chains, obviously, but I wanted to break that chain of minorities and high-risk youth being vulnerable. I wanted to end that chain, that kind of repetitiveness. So with Operation Underground Railroad, I was invited to speak, and I was so excited, and, COVID happened. So everything is, like everything else, it's on hold.
Right.
But I'm definitely, I'm an ambassador for them, and so I post a lot about them. I'm also an ambassador for Free for Life. Is another human trafficking organization, and they're awesome too. I get a lot of educational material from them, and I honestly just love reading it.
But if you go on Project Underground, you'll see that he posts all the kids and the families that were saved, right?
Yes.
It's so sad because there might be 25, 30, and there's like 3 kids, 8 kids, 1 kid.
Yeah.
All of that effort for one child. And I know it's worth it. And
Yeah.
he's even adopted a couple of those children.
Oh, yes, he has. And in fact, it can be, you have to, so with this, it's like I'm all over the place, but with this topic, you kind of have to take the good as it comes.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
So you have to take that one survivor or 2 survivors. You have to, because if not, you're going to be left hopeless. You're going to be left
That's
empty.
true too. And every person counts. But
exactly, every person counts.
You're
but
watching...
it's hard. It's hard
Yeah.
to know that and to be okay with that. And that's something, I don't think we'll ever be okay with it, but it's something that we kind of have to Okay.
You know what I
okay.
don't understand? And maybe you can help me with this because you're an ambassador, right? So we have the United Nations, right? We have all these countries come in and they talk about, I don't know, climate change, right? Why can't we have all of these countries come together and say, you know what, why don't we tackle this human trafficking thing? Why don't we set an international task force? If you read what he's done, he's got to get permission to go in to arrest somebody that's committing a crime to a child. How come we can't do that on an international level? We
You
do
are
that for the air.
asking all the right questions, and I think that's what so many of these organizations want to know as well.
Yeah.
That why aren't we looking at this? What's wrong? What are we
Yeah.
doing wrong here? What are these kids doing wrong?
Yeah.
That they're not getting the attention they deserve and they're not getting the love that they deserve. What's happening? And so that is the golden question.
Yeah.
And that's the question that everyone is asking, but no one can find the answer to.
Yeah, now that's a platform to run on, you know?
Yeah. And I love it, and I've made so many great connections. And last year I ran, I had a fundraiser through Love 146, and I was able to raise about $300. And a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, it's $300." I was like, "Yeah, but it's $300 that this organization can use as resources."
That's
Honestly,
exactly.
when it comes to these organizations, every dollar, every penny counts.
Yeah.
Because you're using these resources to save actual lives.
Yeah.
And so there is never I don't know how I would say this. There's never a minimum amount. Mm-hmm. Everything counts.
That's right.
That's,
Sometimes I struggle though when you make these donations. Sometimes it covers cost of this, and then it's such a fraction that's used, a small fraction that's used to the actual cause, and then
that's why
everything else.
I research when I am promoting or if I'm backing an organization. I want to know. I'm doing that research. I want to know, where is this money going? What are you doing? What are your beliefs? What are your morals?
Yeah.
How do you operate? And so that's why I back Love 146 and Operation Underground Railroad. Those are my favorite organizations, and they get their hands dirty.
Yeah,
They
I've seen
are
it. Yeah.
in the field. And if I know you said you've seen Operation Tucson,
Yes.
but if anyone hasn't, it's on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
It's great, but I will just let everyone know it can be triggering. It's emotional and it's heavy.
It is, and it's outside of the United States, but one of the guys were American. And
Yes.
you say to yourself, how could an American do this,
Yeah.
It's not to justify anything, because sometimes these third world countries, they sell their kids because they have no money. They want to
Exactly.
eat, which is not justifying it. But when you go out of your way to do this stuff, that's why I said, how is there a law protecting somebody like this? Where's the protection for the child, which there is none.
And I find myself asking the same exact questions. Again, why?
I know.
What are we doing wrong? What can we do? And I ask myself, what these organizations ask, like, why? What are we not doing? How can we help? How can we save these kids? How can we save their lives, their futures? And so that's why I enjoy working and advocating for the high risk and vulnerable community, because one, I come from that community.
Yeah.
But two, these are their futures, and a lot of these kids that are high risk and come from minorities, they're born into that.
Yeah.
I was born a Hispanic. I can't change that.
Right.
And just because I'm born Hispanic, I'm born a Puerto Rican, my vulnerability is automatically higher. That's not fair.
Yeah.
But that's how it is, and so that's why I want to do something for them. And so that's why I advocate for that community. And it is true that these vulnerabilities are higher. The youth in group homes, runaway youth, drug use, that is a vulnerability, because if you think about it, teens are very impressionable.
Yeah, they are.
Teens are very
Yep.
impressionable. And you add that to an unstable teen, or a teen who is coming from a broken home, or
Yeah.
a teen who has emotional abuse. They are unstable and they are very emotional. They are easy to
Influence, yeah.
Exactly. They're easily influenced.
Yep.
And so unfortunately they're vulnerable. They are wide open to anything that is there to make it better.
Yeah.
And so I just feel so much for it, and I can go on and on.
So can I. So I'm a big podcast listener. There's a guy, Ed Milet. I love this guy, Ed Milet. I listen to him all the time. He had this woman, her name was Elizabeth Frazier. I don't know if she was human trafficked. She was human trafficked from her parents, who started her out at 4 years old, bringing her to hotels and having sex with men in exchange for money. She did that until her teens. And she was on this podcast, and it was such an amazing podcast because she realizes that that wasn't her identity. And when she did, she became depressed because that's all she really knew. It was her identity. So even at a young age, when a child is trafficked, right, it turns out that becomes their identity. And then you have to deal with, forget about now the identity, forget about the fact that they were trafficked, but now this depression in the identity.
Exactly. It's like, who am I?
Exactly right, because that's gone now.
Yeah, it's just, oh my gosh.
I know. But there's another part of the story. So when you said, what do we do to help? So in this podcast, Ed Milet brought up what happened in Florida literally a month ago. Did you hear what happened in Florida?
I feel like I did.
So I don't, who knows if the audience heard it, but what happened was, it was, I think, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and somebody called out sick. One of the waitresses called out sick. Another waitress came in to fill in. It was at a diner in Florida, Orlando, Florida. And this family came in, a husband and a wife, and I think 2 children. Both had masks, all 4 of them had masks on, but they saw that there was something wrong with the child. The waitress saw, and it was the 2 parents here and both children here. So they saw a little cut around his eye, and they saw he looked sad, but they couldn't really see because his face was covered with the mask. And then they brought over food, and he didn't eat. Mm-hmm. So the waitress wrote a little letter and put it behind the parent and said, "Are you okay?" And the kid said no, and he went like this, and that was it. She calls the police. And while they're being fed, the police come to find out he was abused. He was physically abused. You know what they did? They beat him up and hung him upside down in a closet and let him hang there. A little boy. And you say to yourself, what can you do, right?
I know.
And what do you do if you find that your next door neighbor, they're great people, you think, but they're trafficking their kids? How do you interject?
That's hard because, I mean, if you think about it, traffickers don't have a sign on their head that says, "I am a human trafficker." They don't look a certain way.
But do we have to know what those traffickees, do they call them, the children, do we have to know what to look for in a child?
Yes, that's actually very important. I'm glad you brought that up. That's good to know. And a lot of people don't. And so it's good to know that a child who's being trafficked or is in the middle of being trafficked, they act a certain way. They are either very attached to the person that's trafficking them. They're overly attached to the point where someone on the outside looks at them and says, wow, that kid is doesn't leave that person's side, very scared of everyone else, for instance, looking to that person for protection almost. And you would think, oh, that's weird. Why is he looking for him to protection if he's being trafficked?
Right.
But if that's all they know, then, or if the trafficker has told that child, I'm sorry, I'm not making sense. If the trafficker has told the child, don't say anything, or, this is going to happen.
Right. We'll go to jail.
Exactly. Something like that. Then the traffickee is going to be clinging to that person for dear life because they're scared. They don't know anything.
Of course.
So it's important to
look.
Like
any abuser, right?
Exactly. Any abuser. They're going to be overly attached. They are going to just look, what is the word? Withdrawn. They're going to look like they don't really have any emotion.
Right.
Kind of just empty. And that kind of sparks question like, oh, okay, that kid just looks empty. He could show signs of self-harm. Right. That's always something to look for. They could be either significantly malnourished or significantly obese. And that, again, you have to look at who are they with. So if they look like they are significantly malnourished, that's one thing to look at. But if you're looking at them and this is a child and this child is significantly obese to the point where it's a health risk. This child is significantly obese. That's something to look for because, again, kids and young adults process everything differently.
Right, of course, yeah.
So a child who is not eating is going to be malnourished, but a child who is being trafficked and has kind of all these resources open to them, they might handle that stress as overeating, the same way adults do.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, adults
they compensate for that.
exactly.
Right.
A lot of adults handle stress by overeating. The same with kids.
Right.
And so the main idea is to look for inconsistencies.
Okay, great. So now let's say I found them inconsistencies, and all right. And to a little off topic, there's a fire, you call 911. You get robbed, you call 911. You watch those. You can gamble from your home, but if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLERS Anonymous.
Yes.
So who do you call?
There is the National Hotline for Human Trafficking. In fact, if you don't know that,
I didn't even know that existed.
yes, there is a national.
Do you know that number by any chance?
I believe. I did.
Google it, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm very
Google
upset
it.
that I don't know off the top of my head, but I believe it is It's a 1-800 number. But if you don't know that number, 911 is your best option, and you literally all you have to tell them is, I suspect someone of human trafficking. And that's it. And they will be on the spot.
Even because I know they don't handle civil cases. Is that considered a civil case if it's a son and a mom and a dad?
You know what? I'm not sure, because that's a touchy subject, especially when it comes to, like you said, civil cases, moms and dads. I want to wish that it's not, and I want to hope. But again,
I'm not too confident about it.
I know the laws with stuff like that is very hot and cold. And so that I don't have the right answer, and I'm not confident enough on that to give you a yes or no answer. But if you ever suspect anything weird, the same way they say, if you see something, say something.
Yeah, right.
Literally, if you see something off, or if you just have like that feeling like that kid doesn't look right, or that kid looks like he's starving, you need to say something, even if it's to the police, like, hey, I don't know if I'm overreacting, but I think there might be a case of human trafficking here,
right,
or something similar. Then they'll be right there, especially when it involves children. Anything that involves children, the police are there.
Yeah.
If you do know the National Hotline for Human Trafficking, I believe if you call them, they will automatically route you to your local police. So you're probably better off calling like 911, but the National Hotline for Human Trafficking will basically stay on the line with you.
That's good. Okay.
So I'm like kicking myself because I know the number, and it's like
it's
on
okay.
the tip of my tongue.
We'll put it all on the podcast.
All the notes. Yeah, it's like on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, that's so important to know. Like, and I feel like some people, the same way some people don't want to call the cops on just anyone.
Right, of course. Because
they don't want to be that person.
Right.
But I feel like with stuff like this, it's better to be that person.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
have it turn out like, oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. Then have it be something. I don't think I would ever forgive myself if I was ever in a situation like that and I let it go only to find out it was a human trafficking situation.
You know, and Ed Milet at the end of that podcast said the same thing. He said, I was hanging outside and at the store, and some father hit this little kid really hard. The kid didn't know what to do, looked like he was going to break down, and it was a big guy and a very tiny kid. And Ed looked back and he saw the kid looked like he was about to cry, and Ed kept walking. And then he sat down. He said at the end of that day, he sat down and thought about it, and he kicked himself for not doing anything. Even if you go up to the kid and say, I mean, the father's probably going to say, get out of my son's face. But, you know.
A lot of times you can read children.
100%.
Oh, my God. Children are so open. They are so open. And
children are open.
They're open and vulnerable, and they are so innocent.
Yeah.
And so even when they don't think they're giving you any information, it's all in their face. It's all in how they act. And so they're open. If they're not feeling it, or if they're in a situation, they'll let you know.
Yeah.
It may not be with words. They may not tell you, I'm in a bad situation, right, but you can
read
feel
them.
it. You can read them, and that's important. Yeah, if I was ever in a situation, I would kick myself if I left.
Yeah.
Not knowing.
It's tough.
It's tough. It is tough because, and you know, I completely understand, because it is tough. You don't want to be the person. You don't want to be the person like, oh, it's probably nothing. I don't want to call the cops, have it be a scene, have the cops come here.
But imagine it fits the other way, right?
Exactly. And so that's what you have to gamble with. And it's tough. But at the end of the day, you need to think about it and say, well, who am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Because if you think
That's
about it
right.
and you think it's like, okay, well, oh my God, the cops are going to come. How's it going to look? How's it going to look to who? Is it about you?
And you could still be anonymous. You
exactly.
Could just, yeah.
So that's important. When it comes to like trafficking, it's always about the other party. It's about the victim always.
What can we do at Rock Out Loud to support you and your platform? Because I'm very passionate about it. We do music lessons for kids. I love kids.
Yeah.
Because when, and the reason why I can say I love kids so much and giving back to them musically is, I started teaching music at 15 years old, and now I'm this old man with this music school, but all of those kids remember me, and they come back and say, those were the greatest times of my life. You teaching me how to play a Led Zeppelin song or a Van Halen song, and going to see you play live, and you have that connection, and it's like, it's the legacy, right? That's what I'm all about, is legacy. But what can I do? And I don't know if there's anything I could do, and you can think about it. You might say in a week, Mike, this is what we can do to raise some money. I'm there. Whatever it is that I can do.
I'll definitely, besides my usual organization fundraisers, I think I want to think about it because, like you said, when I walked in here, I was like, oh my God, my dad would love this place. He's a musician. I'm a musician. And so when I saw you, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And music really is therapy. I firmly
100%.
believe it. Coming from a music background.
Yep.
In fact, my grandfather plays guitar. I believe he plays bass.
Wow.
Yeah, my grandfather plays guitar. My dad plays piano.
And you play flute?
I play flute. My sister plays violin.
Holy cow.
Yeah, my brother plays trumpet. And my dad also does like the drum synthesizer.
You have like a whole jazz band coming out of your house.
Yeah, in fact, we used to jam a lot. We would go like downstairs into my dad's like little office, and he would have like his keyboards, and we would jam.
That's great memories.
But yeah, music is therapy. In fact, just today at work, I had a killer headache, and I put on my Spotify playlist, and what I listen to is just like this classical music. It's music is therapy, whether you're a believer of music or not. It's literally science.
I couldn't agree more. 100%.
So I'm definitely gonna take you up on that offer, because I think with human trafficking survivors and music together, I think there's definitely something that we can do. So I'm definitely gonna take you up on that.
So I'm gonna, now it's totally off topic. We'll talk a little bit more about you, but I researched the heck out of it. I know your boyfriend's name is Kyle. I know all that stuff. So the thing is, by the way, you take beautiful pictures.
Thank
beautiful
you.
Pictures.
Oh my God,
and,
thank you.
And if you ever Google, Andrianna Acosta, you could see she takes beautiful pictures. But the one thing I wanted to ask you about was your scar. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because I thought that was the most attractive thing about you. Because you are not hiding it. And to me, it's probably got a great story behind it.
Oh, yes. In fact, in the beginning of November, I posted about it. Because if you don't know, February is Heart Health Month.
Yep.
So the story behind my scar, when I was born with a ventricular septal defect, which in layman's term is a hole in the septal wall of your heart. Mm-hmm. This is
By the way,
common.
Look at how you can turn out. For all those parents that might have that problem with their children, it ain't that
you
bad.
You can turn out normal.
Yeah, it is not that bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's not a joke about it. I should have.
No, I understand. But a ventricular septal defect. I was born with it. So it's pretty common. In fact, a lot of babies are born with a hole in their heart.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty common. The only difference is 99.9% of the time it closes up. It heals itself in the first.
Without an operation?
Correct. Yeah, the body, once you're born, the body just the same way you're not done growing when you're born. It kind of just, the muscles come together. It just heals itself. It closes on its own. And so most often when babies are born with it, in fact, most people are born with it, and it just closes on its own.
Holy mackerel.
In fact, it's the same way when babies are born. They say, their bones are not formed
That's
yet.
Right, yep.
It's the same thing. It just happens and it fixes itself. What happened with me is it did not fix itself, and it was kind of doing the opposite. It was kind of getting bigger.
Really?
And so if you can imagine, like a newborn heart they say your heart is the size of your fist. So if you think of like a newborn heart, they said my hole was the size of a quarter.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the size of a quarter. And the only way they found out is because my mom, actually, she's the real hero of this story. My mom, she kind of started taking note as to what was happening with me. So I wasn't eating. I was sleeping longer than usual. I was turning blue. My fingers were turning blue.
Oh, my God.
And so my mom, I'm the second born, so I guess my mom knew what to expect with the firstborn.
Right.
And when she figured out Andrianna's not eating, and when she does eat, she has a few sips of her formula and then sleeps for hours long. And while this is normal newborn behavior,
how did they figure out it's the heart?
so I'm telling you, my mom knew something was wrong.
Holy
She
cow.
was documenting. In fact, when the last time I went to visit them, I found the notebook that she documented everything in.
Wow.
And I swear it was like reading a story. She documented everything. Andrianna drank X amount of ounces. Andrianna slept for this amount of hours.
Wow.
And so she took me to the doctor, and the doctor was like, well, start monitoring it. And my mom was like,
here's the book.
exactly. I'm already one step ahead of you. And when the doctor saw all the numbers and everything, that's when he was like, okay, well, let me run some tests. Let me talk to people. And from my pediatrician, the pediatrician was like, okay, well, I'm going to have you see a cardiologist. And my mom asked, okay.
What put that together? I don't understand. How could not eating, sleeping a little bit?
So the way it all correlates is because when your heart is doing too much work, it gets tired. It's a muscle.
all right.
So it's like exercising.
That makes
it's
sense.
pumping extra. And so when we eat, we burn calories.
Yep.
And so my mom would try to feed me, and I would eat only a little before getting so tired.
I see.
And then I was tired, and then I would sleep. And because I'm sleeping, I'm not going to eat. And so it was a constant cycle. And my fingers would turn blue because my heart's not pumping enough to
that
send the
makes
oxygen.
sense.
So it was all related. And my mom knew something was wrong. So the doctor said, okay, well, I need you to go see this cardiologist. And my mom said, okay, well, when should I make an appointment? And the doctor was like, actually go now.
Wow.
And so my mom, she was nervous, and that's when they made the diagnosis that I had a hole in my heart. And so this was I believe I was only 3 or 4 months old. So I was born in September, so this was December, January. And so they were like, okay, well, we need to do open heart surgery. We'll go in, we'll repair the hole. The only thing that was stopping me was I was too small. I wasn't heavy enough to survive the surgery.
Oh my God.
And so the doctors were like, we cannot do this surgery because she's not heavy enough. She doesn't have enough calories, enough fat. She's too small. And so for I think another 4 months, I had a feeding tube, and it was like strapped to my face.
Were you in the hospital that time?
I was in and out.
Holy cow.
And so I have so many baby pictures of like a feeding tube taped to my face.
Oh my God.
It was so, every time I see the pictures, I'm like, geez, Mom, like, it's just like a giant piece of
there
like,
was no Photoshop back then.
So,
It probably was.
So, and my mom would tell me, she's like, yeah, I struggled because you would rip the feeding tube out. I would have to come home from work, put it back in, make sure you were okay, eating enough. And so it was a constant battle of taking the feeding tube out, my mom having to put it back in for an additional 4 months. And when I turned 8 months, it was in May, I believe. I was already 8 months old. Then is when they decided to do the surgery. So I went almost a year with a hole in my heart.
Holy cow.
And they did the surgery, and they repaired the hole, and here I am.
It was, that's an amazing story, by the way, because I saw everything tells a story when you look at somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw you, I was like, wow, I can't believe it. And she's got this, beautiful smile on her face. I have to ask her what this is all about.
Yeah.
And it's got to be the most attractive thing about you. And I hope you use this in your platform. Because
I do.
This is a big thing.
It's important because I also model. And so I've had pictures taken of me where they kind of like edit the scar out.
Really?
Yeah, in fact, I told my boyfriend, I was like, can you believe this picture? They took the scar out. And my boyfriend's like, he probably didn't mean to. I was like, I don't care. Like, you're supposed to ask me. Like,
do you know
it's
how many
not
people
a flaw.
It's true, and you know how many people that would, like, somebody who's got a mole on their arm.
Yeah,
they'd be
edit
like,
that out. I don't
yeah,
want it edited
exactly
out.
right.
I want it. In fact, my headshots for pageants, my scar is clearly visible, and I want it that way. I want it to be seen. I don't want to hide it because, one, it's a talking point. I love talking about it.
Well, I know. I
love
think
talking about it.
I think it's a great thing that you just don't hide it, because there
I
are
don't wanna
people
hide it,
who
yeah.
has scars, whether it's on their face and they don't want to show anybody.
I love my scar for the fact that obviously I don't remember my surgery. I was 8 months
Right,
old.
of
That's
course.
literally impossible. But it's something that I will never forget happened. It's something that happened, and though I can't remember it, I won't forget it happened. And it reminds me of just everything my parents went through, man. When my mom tells me, and I read all her journal posts of Andrianna, she's not having a good day, she ripped her tube out, or whatever. I feel like I'm there. And it's
Right.
weird because this is all it happened, and I
Right.
feel like I'm reading like a story.
And
And
the
I
strange
think
thing is, I have a totally different connection to it, because I don't know you the way you know you, of course. But, you have open heart surgery. You have an open heart. You kept saying kids are open. Maybe the universe said, this is what we have to do to get her so passionate about this trafficking for children,
Yeah.
to saving children. And they saved you as a child through your open
Yes.
heart. And now they filled the hole, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way I looked at it, because I kind of had an idea that was probably what it was. And then human trafficking in kids. It's
Yeah.
like this whole universe coming together and saying,
It's weird how
Andrianna.
things all
Yeah.
connect, but yeah, I think about it and I'm like, my family they endured so much. I mean, I tell my mom, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot imagine like having a baby and just feeling all this, having my baby have open heart surgery at 8 months old. Like I don't know how my mom did it and my
Yeah.
dad did it. I think about it and it's just so, I just can't believe it. And even throughout my life, like my grandparents, off topic, but still related. My grandparents lived with us in New York, and they lived upstairs while we lived downstairs. So my grandparents pretty much raised me. And I have pictures of me as a toddler doing the most daring things, walking on planks with like, my shirt off. You can see my scar. And I'm like, I was so brave. I literally had no clue what was going on. And I have all these pictures, and it's just, I think about it and I'm like, my family really, like, I'm without words because
Right.
I can't imagine
Yeah.
doing that. And I think of my grandmother, one, because when I was younger, my grandmother always used to say to me, she used to favor me and spoil me, like all grandmothers do.
Right,
But
that's true.
she would spoil me more than my siblings and my other cousins. And the excuse was because I had heart surgery, and I was always special. I was always fragile because I had heart
Right.
surgery, and so I got everything I wanted because no, she had heart surgery, so she needs extra love.
Right.
And so my grandmother gave me literally anything I wanted, but she always told me, Anna, you're special. You're gonna be someone. And, I'm sorry.
That's beautiful. You
apologize.
just lost her, didn't you?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I get emotional. It's still fresh, but my grandmother passed almost a month ago,
Yeah.
to the day.
I remember when you told me that, yeah.
But she always told me, you're so special. And when I think about everything that I've done and just the impact that I'm making, I truly think about her, and I think about the person I've become, and I think about this is who she was talking about. This is the person who she was talking about. And as a kid, I always thought of, okay, Grandma, yeah, I'm special, I know, but this is who she was talking about, and I never knew. And
You got to give grace to your grandma.
I know, and I do.
I know. I can
I'm
see
sorry.
it.
I do get so emotional, but
It's okay. It's okay.
But yeah, I think about it, and I honestly, if a year ago even, I would not think that this is where I would be today. So much has happened so much has changed. I've grown so much as a person, not even just through pageants, but just as a person with my charity work and just in general. It's been such a blessing. And the story with my heart, I've been able to use it so much more. I talk about it now all the time with modeling. Awesome. I've talked about it with modeling agencies, and I make it very known that I don't want to hide my scar. It's who I am. And my grandmother wouldn't want it hidden. My mom wouldn't want it hidden. And I don't want it hidden.
Awesome.
And
I honor that. I think that's amazing about you.
And I mean, if I'm being honest, it took me a while to get to that place. When I was younger, I didn't like it. I was very ashamed of it because no one my age had heart surgery. Yeah. Like all the scars that kids had were, on their knees or on their elbows. Right. But when I had a chest long scar, and no one my age had that, and so I wanted to hide it. And I always, ironically, I'm wearing a turtleneck today, but it's unrelated. Totally unrelated. But I always would wear turtlenecks. I would zip my hoodies all the way up to the point where my mom would tell me, Andrianna, you're choking. You can't do that. And I was so self-conscious until I don't even know what changed, but one day, I guess someone asked me what happened, and I just talked about it, and they said, wow, that's so cool. And I guess from then on, I was like,
that's amazing.
I guess it is cool.
What a great story. What a great story. So we usually wrap up the podcast when I ask a question to the guest. And by the way, you're an amazing guest. And this was the most intense conversation I've had. And educational, too, because I've learned more than I've ever learned about this. And I thought I knew a lot. But obviously
we always do. And I always like to say, there's never a cap to what you can learn.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And so this goes back to my question. So I'm a big Mustang guy. I had just completed a restoration of a 1966 Ford Mustang convertible. I loved it. I pulled it into my garage, and as the door was closing, I said to my dad, Dad, God, I love this car. And it was like my dream car because I love Mustangs. And he said, I was just in Mass the other day, and the priest said something very important. I said, so what did he say? And he said, everything that we own in this life will be one day owned by somebody else, whether it's your car or your house or your jewelry. Mm-hmm. He said, you got to think about what you're here for. He goes, what are you here for? And I didn't get that because I was a kid at the time, but then now I got it. But I'm going to ask you that question. What is Andrianna Acosta here for?
That's a great question. And I wish more people were asked that because it's like a soul-searching question. Yeah. Really. It's deep. What am I here for? I am here to help end human trafficking. I'm here to make a difference. I am here to, other than human trafficking, to show other people that have had heart surgery that it does not limit you. It doesn't tell you what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. I was a cheerleader in high school. I've been active, and it's never stopped me. I ride on roller coasters. I do all these things. It won't ever stop me. And I'm here for that.
That's great. You're a beautiful person. I want to honor you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
And if somebody ever wanted to reach out to you, is it your Instagram? Because you have a couple of them. You have the
yes.
Well, you're a Philly girl. We all know you're a Philly girl. You're New Jersey. Your Instagram is
yes.
New Jersey.
Yes. So I have my if you want to follow along on my pageant journey, it's Andrianna.pageantofficial, and my name is Andrianna ANDRIANNA.
Right. That's right. There is an N. And
yes.
Then it's Andrianna Elise is your personal.
Yes. Andrianna Elise _ is my personal, right. If you want to follow along.
That's great.
And if you follow my pageant page, you'll find all the links to my human trafficking work.
Terrific. Well, thanks. And don't forget to get in touch with me about how we can help.
Yes, I'm really excited about that. I can't wait to soul search and do some deep
Me too. And then maybe your dad will come and play some piano. And
yeah, I have to tell him about this place. As a pianist, he would totally jam out.
That would be great. Ladies and gentlemen, the beautiful Miss Andrea, thank you so very much. Enjoy
you.
we'll see you April 10th, right?
Yes.
The big show. All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you.